Narcissists cannot have peace in the home, right? They generate chaos on purpose.
All right, so this is very true. And the crazy thing about what she's saying here, if you watch the whole video, is they generate chaos on purpose. And the crazy thing about it is after a period of time, that chaos feels normal. That chaos feels safe. That chaos feels like that's the one thing that you actually know that you can hold on to that's going to be consistent because you're actually controlling it. So after a while, you continue and continue and continue to build that chaos. So when I finally got to the place where I was starting to weed through and having less and less chaos, it felt really wrong. It felt out of the ordinary. It felt weird. And it felt at times like all I want to do is go back to the chaos because it was the one thing that I knew of how to control and of how to be in charge of. And not being in charge of it was very unusual and kind of a weird experience.
So if you're dealing with a sibling, if you're dealing with a parent, if you're dealing with anyone in your life that has narcissism or narcissistic traits, one of the biggest things you need to do is set boundaries. Now, a lot of times we hear that and we think, oh, we need to set boundaries for the other person. Yes, that's true, but ultimately what you're doing is you're setting boundaries for yourself. You're saying, hey, this is the level, this is the farthest I'm going to be pushed with this person's abuse, manipulation, gaslighting before I do X, before I walk away, before I say, hey, you're not going to be in my kid's life anymore, before I say, hey, you're no longer going to be coming to events with me, or whatever it might be. You get to that place where you set a boundary. The biggest thing that happens a lot of times is people forget to set consequences. They just set a boundary. If a boundary is set and a narcissist comes up and breaks that boundary and you don't do anything about it, well, then they just got the entitlement that, hey, they're allowed to break your boundaries and it doesn't matter because you'll just keep forgiving them and bringing them back. So set a boundary, set consequences, follow through.
So it's very true in a lot of ways. A lot of times when you give a narcissist a blow to the ego, when you shame them in a certain way, when you betray them, at least in their minds, it's going to come to the place that they're probably going to remember you. Yeah, it might not be in a good light at all. It might be bad. They might come back at you. They might try to shame you. They might try to manipulate you. They might try to smear you, doing a smear campaign, like anything like that. But odds are is they're probably not going to forget you. That's definitely true in a lot of ways. They might try to forget you. They might say they forgot you, but there's probably some aspect that's still going to remember you and still going to remember the damage or the hurt, that might have been caused by someone calling out a narcissist or someone giving them that blow to the ego by just saying, hey, you're not the person you think you are. That can be really hurtful a lot of times to a narcissist.
All right, so how can you tell if a narcissist is lying or telling the truth? The hard part with this is the majority of time, narcissists as a whole are typically lying 24/7, no matter what. They're lying to get out of something. They're lying to get into something. They're lying to avoid something. They're lying just because they feel like it, or they're lying just because it's natural and it's a habit. That's the hard thing with a narcissist. It is very, very hard to be able to tell when someone is lying or not. Now, obviously, I could say, like, hey, validate their story. Hey, try to figure out, like, if they actually did lie, verify it with someone else, like, double check their facts, things like that. Over a period of time, a narcissist or someone who is doing any type of lying will eventually slip up. The problem is there's not a surefire way to be able to tell if a person is lying. Couple little fun tips. Contrary to prior belief, if a person is actually making eye contact with you, that doesn't mean that they're telling the truth. Okay, so if someone is lying to you, someone who's a very good liar, very good manipulator, will actually look you in the eye and stare you down in one sense to make sure that you're actually believing their lies. For them, if they looked away, that would be an admission of guilt that they're actually lying. So when they go to lie, they actually look you straight in the eye. That way they feel more trustworthy, even though that's not a case. A lot of times the people who lie, they can't multitask. So a person can't lie and pour a cup of coffee at the same time. Not all the time, but that is a lot of times a trigger of just watching someone interact, of how they interact, of how they lie. A lot of times when people do lie, a lot of times they won't put together contractions very well. So they'll be like, I didn't do this. They'll be like, I did not do that, because they're actually having to think consciously to say the words did not, because they actually did. So a lot of times you'll see if someone is lying, they'll actually take off the contractions and they'll be like solid words, like I did not do that. I did go to the store instead of I didn't. They'll take out little things like that. Those are little random tips and tricks, nothing super crazy. I'm not a professional on it by any means, but I do understand a lot about lying. So I don't believe that narcissists are just born. I believe a narcissist is grown. Narcissist is a product of their upbringing and is a product of the things that they've been put through, whether that's emotional abuse, whether that's some type of trauma, whether that's emotional neglect, whether that's overbearing parents, over-controlling parents, over-enabling parents, like whatever it might be, that is something that is grown. That is something that is developed over a period of time. So for me, a lot of times my parents at first were a little bit more on the overbearing, over-controlling side. So I get to the place where I would see this is what I want to do, but I know I'm going to get this type of response from them. So I need to figure out how I can get around that. Well, I want to do what I want to do, so I'm going to do it. Then I'm going to figure out how I'm going to lie, manipulate, gaslight to be able to get around the response that I know that I'm going to get from them.
I just want to say y'all have been incredibly supportive. Thank you guys for all the follows, for all the love, for all the stuff that you guys have been saying and doing on different videos and just comments and things like that. I have been working on launching a website and also launching some coaching, either talking about narcissism or some life coaching, just talking through different things of how to get to the next level, how to get to the next step. Check out the link in my bio and let me know if I can be there to help. I've had the honor to be able to work with a couple people already, and just being able to talk to people one-on-one through Zoom calls and interactions has been really awesome. And it's been eye-opening for me, and it's been encouraging for other people as well. So check it out, set up a time. Love to be able to talk to you guys. Unfortunately, a lot of times it is very common of someone who is brought up in a narcissistic household or with narcissistic parents will often start meeting the same people, will often start meeting people that resonate with them with narcissistic tendencies. The thing that you're noticing here is, at least it's something that you're noticing. So start looking into it, start researching it, start understanding, hey, what are the red flags that I need to start looking out for, that I need to start working towards making sure that these don't come into my life ever again. You have to start setting boundaries, where you have to start telling people no, where you have to start going along the lines of making sure to value yourself, of making sure to protect yourself when you're getting into whatever type of relationship is next. It's a lot easier to stay in an unhappy relationship if you're controlling and manipulating the chaos. But as soon as you leave that relationship, you have to put the mask back on. You have to start lying, love bombing, spending money, all these types of things in a new relationship to be able to get a new supply. So a lot of times the narcissist will stay because it's easy. They'll stay because maybe the bills are getting paid, or they don't have to worry about getting a new place to live or a new house or another car or whatever it might be. A lot of times they're going to take the easy road. The other times is they're not going to break up, they're not going to move out, they're not going to get a divorce just because they don't have the balls to actually admit what they've done. They don't have the balls to actually admit the hurt that they've caused, the things that they've done, and everything that they've done that's damaged other people.
So it is true, when we got together, I went through the regular narcissistic type of things of love bombing, gaslighting, manipulating everything to be able to get her, to be able to fast forward, to be able to get into marriage and everything like that. And then that's when it changed. The mask came off. How I started communicating, acting, was not loving, not caring, anything like that at all. Then later down the road, as I'm starting to learn about narcissism, as I'm starting to become aware of what I'm struggling with, the change got harder because it's harder to break those habits. It's hard to work through different things. And for us now, the growth and the awareness is definitely different, and is trying to be more open, is trying to be honest, is trying to be vulnerable with the things that I go through, and her calling me out at times of, hey, like, this is how you're coming across, or hey, you have this tendency right now. It is a lot with effort. A lot of times narcs look for the easiest path. They look for the easiest person. They look for the easiest prey. They look for the person who has a void in their lives that they need to be filled. They look for someone who's looking for a certain person that they know they can model after for a period of time. They're looking for someone who is not very secure, or they're looking for someone who isn't emotionally stable, or they're looking for someone who wasn't loved as a child, or that their parents aren't involved in their lives, or that they have a disconnect, that they can come in and they can be that savior. They can be that person that can whisk them away or make everything seem better while getting them to be their supply, getting them to be addicted to them, getting them to be in control, to limit everything, to be like, see, like, I saved you from this, I helped you, whatever it might be. Like, they want to be able to be in charge of that supply.
Couple things with this. A lot of times with lies, it's very confusing and it gets really hard because a narc a lot of times is disassociating. They're trying to keep separate lives. They're trying to keep separate stories, separate ideas and concepts, like different. So a lot of times narcs will resort to trying to be half-truths or as close to the truth as possible because it's not as hard to remember. It's easier if you can build something based somewhat on truth versus having to fabricate a complete lie. What I've seen a lot of times with a lot of narcissists, and a lot of narcissists are really stupid at it. A lot of narcissists are really dumb at lying, and they're very obvious. Most of the time they think they're the best people ever at lying, and they try to manipulate people, and people are like, nah, like this. I can still see that something's going on. So oftentimes they're not the best at lying, but that often leads to them not being able to keep the lies straight, that not being able to keep the mask on top all the time because they get confused. I think a lot of times the narc will stay with someone because it makes them look normal. You see, the narc is trying to continue to keep the mask, continue to hide, continue to gaslight, continue to manipulate. And if they can do that with someone, even if that someone is not the best in their mind or the person that they don't like, but if they can still do that and keep the trauma bond and still keep that control going, they're going to continue to do it. They're going to continue to stay with that one person. Yes, they'll step out. Yes, they'll cheat. Yes, they'll go to other people. They'll go to work. They'll go to drugs, alcohol, whatever it might be. Like, they'll continue to go, but they're still going to come back and they're still going to try to do what they want to do because of the fact that it might make them look normal. And they also know that it's probably the easiest thing is to deal with a person that's dealt with their chaos for so long.